And my name is Patrice Horstman. I am your county supervisor for District 1. I'm also the chair of the Coconino County Board of Supervisors, and I've had the great pleasure of being able to represent this community and District 1 now for going on 5 years. And I want you to also know that my district director, Cindy Soki, is here. And you may have talked to Cindy, and we are always available for you. We are here to answer your calls, your questions, if you want to just talk about what's going on. So it is really important for us to be in this together and work together. And what we're doing here today, as you can imagine, is we want to share with you some of what we, Coconino County and the Flood Control District, have been doing to help to build resilient communities all over Coconino County. And how do we do that? We do it through partnerships with the Forest Service, partnerships with the City of Flagstaff, partnerships with our private partners to take a look and to do some planning based on scientific data on what are the potential emergency events so that we can then work together to do mitigations and preparations for these events. In the hopeful they will never occur. But if they do, we want to make sure we are prepared and that you are prepared and we are prepared together as a community to be able to address these emergency events and to do what we can to mitigate their effects. So that's what we're here for you tonight. We have a lot of experts from both our private partners, from the Forest Service, and from Coconino County. And I'm going to get out of their way so that you can hear from them. We also looking forward to an opportunity to hear from you, to answer your questions. And when we are done, there are a number of maps, etc., and we will be here and we can talk more on a smaller group level or a one-on-one level at the end of the meeting. So there's a lot of slides, and so I think we should get forward and get moving on this. So again, thank you all for being here. I'm going to turn this over to Lucinda Andriani, somebody I'm sure you all know and have met over the years, and she is our Flood Control District Director. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Patrice, and thank you everyone for coming out. We really appreciate your interest, and as she noted, we're in partnership with you, and frankly, if any of these issues that we're going to talk about occur, I mean, that is fundamental to everything that we get done. And so we've got a great set of folks here tonight to share information with you and hear your questions and comments. And I want to say there's a number of tables set up out here with information. So what we want to do is move through the presentations, but know that everybody's staying. And so if you have a specific question about your property or you have a specific question, any question, general or specific, that you want to ask, everyone's staying so that you afforded that opportunity to ask your questions and get answers and comment. Share your information and share your perspectives. So basically I have three overarching areas that we want to discuss tonight. Joe Loveridge with J.E. Fuller. As you know, we did a meeting out here and we shared the results of what we call the pre-wildfire, post-wildfire flooding modeling that he did. And I recognize some of you were here. Some may not have been here. That's fine. He's going to touch on that because that gives context to a lot of what we're going to talk about this evening. And then Joe has taken that information, and there's a set of boards here on this side that he's taken that information and developed, again, a pre-fire, but post-fire, what would be the short-term mitigation efforts that we have to employ if this watershed burns at this end, which then will, with post-wildfire flooding, will flood into this area, into the Fort Valley area, and then down through and through Flagstaff, frankly. What are the pre-fire, how do we understand what we're going to need, and what are you going to need to do relative to your homes? And so I really encourage you to take a look at that before you leave tonight, if you didn't get an opportunity, and look at where your home is. Many of the homes will need to be completely surrounded by sandbags. and there's a very specific protocol for that. We did this in Donny Park, where you have low areas like Fort Valley, where there's a particular protocol. We aren't going to get into that level of detail tonight, but believe me, if anything happens, we will. But we know, and Joe will get into the details, we're going to need upwards of 800,000 sandbags, and we're going to need 3.5 miles of barrier, basically. So we've got part of the next level of planning is, how do we get it here? Where does it get staged? How do we get it to your neighborhood, into your streets, and all of that? To your benefit, we've done this a few times now, so we're, unfortunately, getting pretty darn good at it. So we'll walk through that. Tim Carter is here tonight, our interim. I'm looking for Tim. Tim's over there. Raise your hand, Tim. Tim is our emergency manager, emergency management department director. And he's going to talk a little bit about the emergency protocol for this area and the evacuation zones that have been created and so forth. And then we're going to turn to forest restoration, and Matt McGrath, the district forest ranger, will be presenting some really important information relative to the forest restoration efforts and other related efforts to prevent wildfires, reduce the threat of wildfires on the peaks. And Jay Smith right here, which is the district's forest restoration director. He'll share how is the district contributing to that. We're contributing significantly financially to those efforts. We'll talk about that partnership. And then lastly, we're going to come back to flood mitigation, and myself and Chris Duza. Chris, where are you? Here, over here. Chris Duza, some of you who was here in 2015-16? We did meetings like in 2016. You may remember we did these initial engineering assessments, and Chris and Joe actually together developed, Joe did the flood modeling, and then Chris came in and developed a conceptual plan in terms of flood mitigation, not post-wildfire, but mostly, frankly, rain on snow events would be the ones that we would see most frequently or more likely here. Anyway, we're entering into a new level of evaluation of our FEMA special flood hazard areas, including the floodplain here in Fort Valley, and we want to share information with you about that and where that process is. We're just launching that tonight. We're just going to provide some general information, and then there'll be a lot of information on our website that you can look at as well as we move through that process. And there'll be other future meetings with the community as we get further into that process. So with that, I think next up is we're turning it over to Joe. And there you go, Joe. All right. And we have to use the microphone because we're recording this in case some of your neighbors couldn't come, and we'll load this. If they want to see it and go back and review it, they can do that online. So,
yeah. Thank you. It's good to be here with you all tonight. Thanks for coming out. What I'm going to do tonight is I'm not going to talk really in depth about the study that we did. That's something we've touched on before. I'm going to talk about some of the highlights, and all the data that goes along with it is available on the county's website, so it's something you can dig into as much as you like, or call me and talk to me about it. We're going to go through that, and then like Lucinda said, we're going to jump through, okay, what if a scenario like this happens? What is some of the initial steps that we need to do to start planning the emergency management, sandbagging, and that sort of thing. And so let's get into it. So we're looking at the Fort Valley. Tonight is specifically about the Fort Valley area. We all know Rio de Flag runs downstream through Cheshire, City of Flag. Its headwaters, though, flow right into Fort Valley here. And so when we look at past history of fires in the region, you have the Schultz fire that started at Schultz Pass. You have the pipeline fire also that started near Schultz Pass. These are both wind-driven fires blown to the northeast, right around that flank of the mountain. Museum fire 2019, again, blue up north and east. And if you look at these fire areas here, they aren't really big when you consider big fires that have happened across the West, but they're very impactful acres. So when we move over here to the Rio de Flag watershed, it's the same thing. It doesn't take a really large fire to have serious impacts downstream. So if we look at the study that we did some fire modeling, looking at current vegetation conditions, past how that vegetation burned in the past on the different fires that happened up on the peaks, and taking into account the thinning that's happened and different aspects like that, and high wind conditions. And so if you look at this map, all this is this black line shows our burn perimeter. This is the green hatched line is the wilderness area. Snow Bowl is right up here, kind of on the top flank of the peaks. And the green indicates a low burn severity, yellow is a moderate, and red is a high burn severity. So it's really reflecting the density of the forest, the amount of dead and down that's in it, and what you may expect if a fire burns through it. What we did, though, was to not to try and assess some of the variability in a fire footprint if it were to happen. So we took it and divided it up into different scenarios. Like, what if just the wilderness area burned? What if just the area above Fort Valley burned, and then these different areas across the face of the peaks, and how do they impact neighborhoods differently if a rainstorm happens on them? So remember what I said about the acreage of some of the previous fires. The Pipeline fire was up around 26,000 acres. You know, if you had a fire burn, basically this whole upper Rio watershed, it only has to be 21,000 acres. So it's not a huge fire that can make a big impact. From that, what we did is we took a lot of lessons learned and the data we've used from past flood assessments on the Pipeline, the museum, the Schultz fire, and we've applied that to this watershed. So we've learned, between all the rainfall gauges that have been installed across the region over the last 20 years, a lot about the weather patterns, the rainfall depths, the way storms move through, and we've used that data to basically inform the modeling done here. What's good to note is that our baseline, what we're seeing here is really a 2-inch and 45-minute storm event. It's a 25-year to 50-year event if you're looking at just the probability of it, but it's a high-intensity, short-duration monsoonal storm. And that type of storm event has happened quite a few times over the burn scars over the years, causing pretty significant flooding that the modeling has showed. And so if you look at Fort Valley, you can see coming out of the Hotshot Ranch up here, and then the other tributary with the Rio coming in on the left side of the screen, all joining at Highway 180, ponds up behind Highway 180, spills over, comes down through the lake area, and across Snow Bowl Road, and that's how it continues its path downstream. What we did to try and assess some of the variability with this is we created these relative probability maps, where you look at multiple different types of rainstorms over multiple different burn scenarios, and to show, okay, if you're in an orange area, there's probably going to be water in just about any fire scenario and storm event that's going to happen. If you're out in the fringe, in the yellow area, it's a lesser probability. It takes a bigger storm event. It takes a more comprehensive fire. And that just using to kind of express some of the variability in it, right? Because we all know that the fire is not going to be exactly like we planned it to be, right? The weather's not going to be exactly like we modeled it. And so there is some variability in it. But this gives a good baseline for what could happen. So what I'm going to dig into here, and some of these maps are shown over here, is what does this mean for emergency management and short-term mitigation right after the fire? Down here at Cheshire, this is where 180 cuts through the little cut down there right after Cheshire. And what we looked at is how can the access be impacted? Okay, we all know that right up here on Highway 180, if the water is sheeting over the road, it's probably going to cause access restrictions. It's going to be difficult for equipment to get in and out, people to get in and out, emergency services. So that's the first point right there. The next point, and this one may be a little bit unexpected, but just right here at the little picnic area deal, right at the curve on your way into Fort Valley, the reason this one gives me pause is that if you look upstream to Freeland Prairie Road, and you go even up a little bit higher than Freeland Prairie Road, there, based on the existing topography, there's a split in the flow. And so it's kind of an alluvial fan feature that's up there. So some of the water will split one direction, some of the water will split another. What we know is that when you get a post-fire flood event, water is going to pick a direction, and it's going to cut, and it's going to go that way. I don't know which way it's going to go, right? And so there's a lot of variability in that. It could completely cut off and divert all that water into the top end of Fort Valley, or it could cut off and send the majority of it down to that crossing right there. So there's some, if a fire would happen, there's some monitoring that needs to take place to kind of see how that's acting up there in the wilderness area. Final area, this is kind of an obvious spot. Right down there at the end of Cheshire, at the north end of Cheshire, it's really confined there. It doesn't take very much water to flow over the road. So all that needs to play into the emergency management. So when we use this, we've kind of talked through the variability and the planning, the access. What I want to show you are some maps, and these are us taking those flood results and saying, if that fire burned and I had this map, what would I advise somebody to do? Or what should we plan for barriers or sandbags for quantities and how to stage it? And so on these maps, there's red polygons and there's orange polygons. Orange are sandbags, red are barriers. This is really defined by barriers are like Jersey barriers, concrete, 42-inch high barriers that you need equipment to set. And the reason is that water has power, right? And so if you have deep water flowing at a very slow velocity, it doesn't have a lot of power to knock down what's in front of it. When you have deep water that's flowing at a fast velocity, it has a lot of power. And so we took that into account to say, okay, the ones in these corridors, based on velocities and depths, you're probably going to need a barrier. Sandbags aren't going to be resilient enough. And as we step down through Fort Valley, there's a change in the dynamic of flow. So you have good velocity coming down towards 180. The water's moving through the system fairly quickly. Once you get down below that, it changes. Water slows, it flattens out, and as the water is moving through at a slower pace, you have a higher chance that water is going to wrap all the way around a house rather than the water plowing around and the house acting like house kind of providing a zone of no flooding behind it. So it's these flat, slow areas that if there is mitigation, you're probably going to have to wrap the whole house with sandbags or barriers. And so that's kind of played into our whole aspect, our whole planning effort. And so this is what it looks like. You know, there's some of these areas where we're trying to plan for, okay, there's a driveway or there's a garage or there's a lot that has to go into this that would have to be field fit while they're being implemented. But this gives us a good start on about how much is it going to take? How do you stage it all? This plays in all the way down. We stopped the barrier plan really at the city limits. The water doesn't stop at the city limits, but this analysis did down through Forest Hills, you know, as it comes down towards Fort Valley Road. So I'm around if you want to talk through your parcel, and we can go through that. But I think, here's a good example. This is one that I wanted to point out, like right here, where you have half the house you really need barriers on, the other half of the house you don't really need barriers on. When it comes into implementation, it may just be all barriers, but these things really have been successful out in the Timberline area with guys from Chris's group and Civil Tech being out there basically advising field fit of all these barriers that have gone in. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim to talk through some of the emergency protocol.
Thanks, sir. Good evening, everybody. Well, first, thank you guys for coming out. As Lucinda mentioned, my name's Tim Carter with Coconino County Emergency Management. Very briefly, before I jump into the couple of slides that I've got, I always want to ask the question, do you know what emergency management is? Unfortunately, not a lot of folks do. So I'll kind of take it in this context. We are the county's primary support and coordination agency for disaster response. You typically see us in the Emergency Operations Center. We provide a lot of, we're basically Amazon for a disaster. We provide a lot of logistics supports. And so Lucinda says we need 800,000 sandbags. I've got a really, is that better? Sounds the same to me, but I got bad ears. Okay. So, when she says we need 800,000 sandbags, I have a phenomenal group that will go scourging the internet, calling in friends, calling in favors to make that happen. We help get all the supplies. Typically through disasters, we have sourced everything from ink pens to airplanes, no joke. So we also will really help with a lot of preparedness efforts, meeting with community groups ahead of time. That's where we spend most of our time, and that's where I actually enjoy spending the majority of my time is under the preparedness, because if we can help our community members be more prepared, we may avoid this overall, right? You heard Supervisor Horstman, unfortunately, hope is not a strategy, okay? But what can we do to kind of help push Lady Luck in our favor? So one of the things that we've got some information on the table over there about is, as we've all heard, defensible space around our homes. We will forever preach that in every meeting we go to, regardless of topic. Make sure we're giving our fire crews the best opportunities that we can to protect our structures and our homes from wildfire is probably the most important thing, in my opinion, that we can do. So we've got some guidance over there that the fire folks have given us for defensible space. Check in with the fire service. They're experts on it. But if an incident does happen, is there anyone familiar with the Ready, Set, Go program? Please, everybody raise your hands. Okay, cool. I'm done for the night. Thank you. If you are not familiar with Ready, Set, Go, or if you are, a very brief refresher. One of the support mechanisms we offer the county is the countywide emergency notification system. So when the sheriff says, hey, we need to potentially evacuate an area, or we now use the ready, set, go language. We've used it for the last handful of years. It's adopted statewide. It's a consistent form of messaging. So you're going to get the same message regardless if you are in Santa Cruz County or in Mojave County, all places in between. So very quickly, what does that mean? It's an all hazards thing. We're always in a state of ready. So today we're in ready. We have time to get ready. It's 70 degrees, blue skies, great weather. Now's the time to get out and do that yard work, do that defensible space, prepare your go kits, make your evacuation plans. If you need help with that, please let us know. Okay. Set stage, that's our old pre-evacuation. So when we send out a message through the notification system that says you are in set or this area is in set, I like to kind of say the ready stage, you've built that go bag. You've got it in the closet right by the front door. So when we go into set, take that bag out of the closet, go put it in the car, and keep your eyes and ears on the radio, social media, official channels. Because when you get a go notice, that's not the time to pack. And I will use some lessons learned from some of our friends over in Timberline when we had the tunnel fire. Before that, historically, we would have anywhere from many minutes to many hours in between a set and a go. It was, fires are doing their thing. They were slow enough moving that we had time to get our stuff ready. During the tunnel fire, the headwinds of the fire were so strong, they were pushing the fire so quickly, there were some folks that 9 to 10 minutes notice between a set and a go. So if you wait until go to start packing, you could be in trouble, right? So how do we notify folks? Again, another lesson learned from the tunnel fire was the need for us to better communicate to the community what area we're talking about. And, excuse me, I can tell this story, and to me it's kind of comical only because no one ever was hurt by this. But the old way, and I kid you not, the old way for notifications for a lot of fires was, and I'm going to ask the fire guys to correct me if I'm wrong, a wildfire starts or a smoke check starts. They show up in the woods, the sheriff's department shows up in the woods, a local fire district shows up in the woods, and somebody has found a rolled up map under the back seat of their truck, and they've pulled it out, and they've laid it out across the hood, and it's all wrinkled and dirty, and they're kind of like, okay, here's the area. That's where they start the initial response for that incident. Well, then they'll start deciding the boundaries of where a set or go status should be. And to me, the kind of weird comical part is I would usually get a picture of a cell phone from someone at the sheriff's department, and it would just be their finger over the map, kind of take a picture and said, evacuate this area. Like, okay, where are you? And then they would start giving me Forest Service road numbers, 9281K over to we don't know where those are, right? So back to the tunnel fire. How do you get all of that information together in 8 minutes? So we sat down with the sheriff's department, a lot of our fire districts, and we identified high population areas throughout the county. We looked at different ways, ingress and egress, the population that's in that area year-round versus a number of structures and short-term rentals that may be in that area. And then also looked at what will it take resource-wise for reentry to get people back into those areas. And we came up with about 200 different zones throughout the county. Each zone has a unique number. Each zone has a unique name. So big one right here you can see is the Belmont 108. There is no other 108 zone. So how do you know what zone you're in? This is an interactive map online. So we want you to go in. When you go to the website, actually, I cut the address bar off, but in the very top left corner, there's an address bar. You type in your address, it will find your address, drop a pin on your home, and it will tell you what zone you're in. There's a printable map that you can also download and print from there, or come see us. We've got copies of them over on the table that will give you what your zone number is. but that is the website and the QR codes. So everything that we have, and I'll give you a couple of websites, but you'll notice everything that we have starts with the main county website of coconino.az.gov/something. To get to the evacuation maps, you just go to evac map after that website, or you can scan this QR code. We've got some materials over there with that on there. That'll really help you figure out what evacuation zone you're in. So now when we send out a message, instead of drawing the map of all these different roads that we're not familiar with, I can come in and say, Belmont 108, you're in set status. Oh, that's me. I know exactly where I am. So out in this area, there are 3 different zones, one on the north side of the highway and then 2 on the south. Those are divided specifically based on population and things like that we mentioned. So take a look at that. Make sure you know which zone you're in so we can communicate that to you. So how do we get that message to you? Here's another one that you're going to hurt my feelings if not everybody raises their hand. Who signed up for the emergency notification system? Perfect. Who has gone and checked your information in the last 6 months? Okay. Please do that. We ask, not because your information may have changed, but because there are new features coming online in this system. So we partner with a company called Rave Mobile Safety. So you'll hear us say we're going to send out a Rave message. That's what this is. The Rave product is Smart 911. So if you go to a Smart 911 page, you know you're in the right spot. I will say we can deliver messages through a lot of different means: text, email, phone calls, social media posts. We reserve that last one for extreme life safety. Has anybody ever heard of IPAWS? That is the FEMA Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. Has anybody ever gotten an Amber Alert? You're driving in Phoenix and your phone starts screaming. You didn't sign up for anything, but it'll let you know there's something going on nearby. That's what that is. Okay. It allows us to do 2 things. The first system is registration based. So if you put in your home address, but you're in Phoenix, there's something happens up here, we can message all devices associated to that address inside the box that we draw. Or for our tourist and visiting population and people that are just happen to be passing through up here, IPAWS is location based, so they can still receive those notices as well. Some of the other additional benefits, happy to give you a lot more details on there, but there is a way that you can voluntarily, for either you or anyone of your family, provide information for those with access or functional needs. So if you may need help evacuating for whatever reason, and when I say need help evacuating, in my mind, it is as simple as stand up out of your chair, walk to the car, and leave. If you have any troubles with that, go and you can provide that information here. If someone is bedbound, if they are on powered medical devices, anything like that, there's dozens of different options. If you provide that information to us, then when we do send out a message, we will run a report for those individuals. We're able to then take that report and either message you directly to say, hey, are you home and do you need assistance? But usually we give that list directly to the Sheriff's Department and to the Fire Department so they know more of a pinpoint area of where to go. Instead of knocking on all doors, they know that there's 8 or 10 that we really want to go check on. So it's a great tool, a great function. It's available countywide. So even if your friends don't live in this area, but you need to get them that information, it's available countywide. So there's a QR code for that. Again, the websites, the main Coconino website, but this time /ready. That will take you to the emergency management website where you can find all of our other links and things like that. We also have our fire restrictions map on there where we kind of as a one-stop shop, we'll put all fire restriction information for all of our land management jurisdictions around Coconino County. So hopefully it's kind of a one-stop shop, but it does have links to all those other agencies. So if you go to coconino.az.gov/fire restrictions, all one word, you'll get that information as well. That was the real quick one for me. We doing questions later, is that right? Okay. All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Matt McGrath.
Thanks, sir. Good evening, everybody. My name is Matt McGrath. I'm the district ranger here on the Flagstaff Ranger District of the Coconino National Forest. I've been here a bunch of meetings. Thanks to Supervisor Horstman for always inviting me out to join you. The Flagstaff Ranger District and the Coconino, basically everything from Munns Park up to Babbitt and from Twin Arrows over to Belmont is the Flagstaff Ranger District if it's not part of the city or private land. And so anything that is either good or bad that's going on out there, I'm responsible for it. So I'm happy to talk to you about that later on today. All the maps and photos that I'm going to click through here, we have out on a table for afterwards, and a couple of folks with the Forest Service here with me talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. But I will go ahead and Schultz Tank. Oops. How do you get backward? Okay. That's how they get me to go fast. You can't go backwards. Always go forwards. There you go. That's good enough. So basically, what are we doing here? And I'm responsible for everything that goes on. And I'd love to come talk to you about trail building, and we've done a bunch of it in the Dry Lake Hills, and it's what I'm excited about. But I'm not here to talk about that because the vast majority of the work that I do is in service of one goal, and really it's to reduce the potential for catastrophic fire in and around the peaks or any part of the district, and reduce the threat of either fire impacting people's homes, like the tunnel fire, or post-fire flooding that we've been talking about. So Joe and Tim talked a lot about what the county is doing to prepare for a bad day. I'm going to talk mostly about what we're doing to avoid that bad day from happening, with the acknowledgement that we all probably know that we live in a fire-adapted ecosystem, and our Ponderosa Pine Forest here, the biggest one in the country, really should have natural fire rolling through it every 5 or 7 or 10 years. And so stopping all fire is not what we're trying to do, but restore kind of as natural conditions as possible so that fire can play its natural role is what we're doing. 3 primary tools there. We're going to talk a bunch about mechanical treatment. That's timber activities, logging. You see that if you drive a little bit further up the road here. Some really great work being done. Prescribed fire, which generally comes after mechanical, really important. I know it's a hassle to people. I know it's impactful to people's health, but something that we really absolutely need to do, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the people management piece, the knucklehead component, as I refer to it, like trying to get people to behave. And I'll admit, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've yet to really find out exactly how to make people behave. But we have some tools to either make people behave or to make it really harder for them to cause trouble when they misbehave, frankly. And it's just the way of the world. It's like that not only on the National Forest, but in society. Some people just aren't going to do the right thing. So this is a map of the entire Flagstaff Ranger District. All of these colors are, and obviously you probably know, here's Flagstaff, and then we're right up here. All of these colors are timber projects that we've been working on, some of them going back 5 years, some going a few years out in the future, but just really giving you an idea that we're working all over the district. Less so on the northeast part because you get out into the cinders and there's really not much for us to do out there. And also, as Joe referenced, like with the fire history, he showed the map with a couple. Almost all of our fires go to the northeast due to our prevailing southwest wind. So really working a bunch southwest of town and southwest of the peaks is really our priority area. Zooming in on the Upper Rio watershed, because this is really what we're here to talk about. So we mentioned the tunnel fire and what had happened then. And after the tunnel fire, we got together really with the county, the flood control district, the city, and we said, okay, this obviously was terrible. What do we really need to do to avoid things from getting worse? And we kind of collaboratively came up with we need to avoid a catastrophic fire on what's left unburned of the San Francisco peaks. We have other important areas, Pump House Wash, Walnut Canyon, that are concerning to kind of the rest of the city. But if the rest of the peaks burn, as Joe talked about, flooding the community, not only Fort Valley, but down into town, probably for years and years and years and years and years and years, kind of thing that would really be difficult for the community to recover from. So we zeroed in on the Upper Rio watershed and developed like 6 priority projects. And I have these listed from 1 to 6. It's not that 1 is really more important than number 6, but just everything in life is sequenced a little bit, and some were more ready to go than others. And I was out here last year, and I had a very similar slide, actually the exact same slide, and then I'm going to click and have like a progress update. And when I was here last time, all of them said like about to start soon. Like trust me, something good is about to happen. And I'm really excited to report that with our partnership with the county, a lot of really great things are happening in the Upper Rio watershed. So we are, let's see, right down here. And so if you drive up 180, you've seen a lot of work on the east side of the road. That is what we refer to as Wing East, that lime green type thing. Perkins Timber, a local operator, is working on that. They are now, as of the 18th, 55% complete with that. One of the great things about that project is on a regular timber project, we cut the trees, we remove the trees, and we leave behind those large piles of slash, those large machine piles, which are really not, they make me uncomfortable when we have to go back and burn them. And it makes it really difficult to get in and burn them, especially with kind of our uneven snow seasons that we've had lately. So working with the county in a lot of these areas, we're actually having all of those piles just removed, physically removed from the area so that we won't have to go back in and burn them. Sometimes people ask me where that pile is going, and I tell them I don't care. I actually really kind of don't. Like, it's not there anymore, and it's no longer really a threat to the community. And one of the great things about that is normally when we have a timber sale and we've completed, we have those large piles. They generally need about 2 years to dry out to where we can burn them. Then we need a really good snowfall so that we know they're not going to creep when we burn them. And we kind of need to know that we're going to get more snow after that. And that is where we run into a challenge. And we kind of had a challenge with that on some of the Snowball Road piles that we burned this fall. Because nobody here really can tell you if it's going to snow next week or not. We guess, and people make a best guess. So having those gone is fantastic. Hawk and Durfer are two other projects, and really kind of zeroing in on the east side of Highway 180 because those are the areas where fire, as Tim talked about, with the tunnel fire, we didn't have a lot of time. Fire on the east side of 180 is going to get up into the peaks really quickly, so kind of focusing on those areas to start. Hawk and Durfer are those two projects working their way up. Both of those are out for contracting right now. We're working with partners on each of those. We're working with the Nature Conservancy on Hawk. I won't point them out in case they want to be stealthy, but somebody from TNC is here today. They can identify themselves later if they want to talk about it. And then we're working with the National Forest Foundation on Durfer. And the value of working with partners on those projects is that we can develop a project, and then instead of the Forest Service having to work more on implementation, we can turn it over to these partners who are really skilled at doing this. They can take care of that implementation and it frees the Forest Service up to prep another project like LaRue, which I'll talk about in a second. So that's the real value of having our partners, in addition to being able to bring in additional resources and oftentimes do things a little bit more in a more streamlined fashion sometimes than Forest Service contracting, I'll say that. Wing West is just this beast of a project over here on the other side of 180. You may have seen they started working in there, R4 started working in there about 3 weeks ago. I put 2% complete. I guessed at that. Cody, you could tell me if I underestimated, but it's this huge project and they just started, but I wanted to acknowledge they have started work out there. It looks great. And I have a slide to show you kind of things that look great. It may not look great to you at first because you're just used to seeing more trees there, but really both of those look great. I was coming down 180 a couple of weeks ago and I actually stopped safely off the side of the road where Wing East and Wing West were both work had been done across the road from each other, because that is just incredible risk reduction to the entirety of the peaks, having treatment on both sides, and then also Highway 180 going through there. Highway 89 didn't slow the tunnel fire down, and that's 5 or 6 lanes, so whether or not a Highway 180, but building off of that is really going to help us a bunch. LaRue and Little Wing. This is LaRue is kind of a hash mark thing. This is Snowball Road going up there. And over the past couple of years, we did some small projects along Snowball Road, hand thinning about 200 or 300 feet off of the road on both sides. And that is just to really two things. One, if we have a fire and folks are up either at Humphreys Trailhead or Snowball, it gives them a better chance to evacuate. Also gives our fire folks a better, safer place to go in up to that fire. And then also reduces the chances of the fire jumping the road, gives them a better chance to anchor off of that road. We had kind of some little hand piles. So those big machine piles, like 2 or 3 stories tall, little hand piles, generally like this, sometimes taller than me. They lift up like that. But we had those piles along Snowball Road, and those were a case last fall, and I know a lot of the smoke settled down here for days and weeks, and it was terrible. But that was a case where we got snow, we went in there, we burned them, and then the additional snow after that did not come. And so it was okay, and we were ready for that, but like it was a real time investment, and like we had a lot of people up there for weeks and months, and it kept us from doing some other things, but getting rid of those piles was huge. Nobody, especially my fire folks, felt good about having them there. So LaRue is it's kind of a little bit of a planning project. It's really steep, rocky terrain. It's really difficult to work. That's why it wasn't initially a project in the past, because it wasn't just like flat ponderosa pine. Sure, we've got rocks everywhere, but it's generally flat. But you get up into that LaRue country, and like traditional logging equipment can't handle it. So we need specialized equipment. We actually have an operator from Oregon that is currently working down by the airport, like by Marshall Lake, that has specialized equipment for kind of steeper, rocky slopes. So we discovered that they were capable of doing that work. So that's when we introduced that as a project. Initially, we were looking at using a helicopter for that, which would have worked. It would have also been $20,000 an acre, which is wildly expensive. And then this steep slope work is probably about $4,000 or $5,000 an acre, which is still expensive, but obviously, you can do 4 times as much work, and that's 1,100 acres. And Jay will talk about that because the flood control district is just playing a huge part in helping us get that work done. And then Fort Valley Experimental Forest, you drove right by it today. It's as you drove up Highway 180. Over here is a project called Chimney Springs that the Nature Conservancy did for us in 2019. It looks great. And then you get into the experimental forest, and it looks terrible. It's just those thick, clumpy trees. We're working on a project in there. One of the challenges, and we're working through it, but there's like 90 years of research projects in there, and they're not mapped well, and they're not like in any kind of order. Like there's one like this, there's one like this. They're just all over the place. It's a mess. I respect the researchers, but I do want to reduce the risk of fire in that area. We're working on that, and we're going to be putting a project together for that this summer, about half of that area, and then we'll be looking at doing some more work next year. That's that partial offering in summer of 25 and second half of summer 26. So this time last year, none of the work had actually started, and I just said, trust me, it's going to happen. And through our partnership with the flood control district in the county, it's all happening. A lot of it is more than half complete. Other projects out for contracting will be done this year and next year, and really, really great work. This is like an aerial image of the entire Upper Rio and beyond. We are right over here, and so Belmont and the freeway, and kind of looking northeast, not on purpose the way the fires go, but just this is where the best angle is. But this gives you an idea of all the projects that we have going on over there. I've talked about the really important ones that we're most excited about and that we're getting done in the next year, and leaning hard on the Flood Control District and our partners, TNC and NFF. And those are these ones kind of close to the peaks, as you might tell. But then in the next 5 years or less even, we'll be going into all of these other areas. Some of them kind of 2024. If it's a year that's passed, it's already done. And if it's a year in the future, it's when we're going to start it. And generally, maybe takes 2 years. But with A1 South being complete, A1 North getting started soon, and all the work in the Upper Rio, like the risk reduction to the peaks and to the community, like it just, I feel better about life every day. And so it's a really good thing. And Cody and I could talk more. Cody's in my timber shop with me. We could talk more about these projects at the table if you'd like. I do want to just point out what it looks like before and after, because I know sometimes people think that it doesn't look great when it's first treated. When the grass grows in, it'll look a little bit different. But Cody pointed out to me that about a month ago, Google Earth updated their satellite imagery of most of the Wing East area, not the whole thing. And so it gave us a chance to look at what it looked like before we got in there and started working, and after. So this is Highway 180 here, and then the 151 going up to Art Prairie. And the black boundary is Wing East. This is LaRue, so when we get in there, okay, it's going to be wonderful. So this is Wing East before, and this is Wing East after. And so I'm going to go ahead and, that's before, that's after. And it can look a little, thank you, Lucinda. It can look a little stark, right? And I acknowledge that. It'll green up a little bit and look a little bit better. These are kind of landings where we stack trees and stuff like that, and that's okay.
It looks a heck of a lot better than if it burned to the ground.
Absolutely, right? And so, before and after, you can see where the satellite image didn't update, because like they're not just cutting on a straight line. Nobody does that. But you see how they're working along here. They'll finish this and continue. And like I said, they're about halfway done and get a lot more done. So we also have these photos outside if folks would like to look. And then just kind of a more zoomed in. This is before, right along Highway 180, and then this is after. And what this does is this reduces, never eliminates, reduces the chance of really a kind of a crown fire where all of the trees just burn and the wind just whips it right through there and gives us a chance for either if a lightning strike happens, it can just sort of roll through the understory and not get up into the canopy, or we'll come through in a few years, 2-3 years, and start working with prescribed fire in the area to reduce the ground fuels as well, something we would not do with all the overstock trees. So that frees us up really to try to restore as much natural process as possible with the understanding that we have 100,000 people living here, in the community, and nothing is ever going to be exactly the way it was, but we're trying to do the best we can there. So before and after looks good. I do want to talk a little bit about prescribed fire because I know you think, the trees might not look great when they cut, but they're not making people choke on smoke or anything like that, and I recognize what a hassle that is. But prescribed fire is a huge part of what we need to do to kind of get back to those natural processes. And so the kind of what we're doing with prescribed fire, because people always think, Matt, it's too hot, it's too windy, it's too dry, it's too this, it's too that, the weather's too nice, it's the spring, stop smoking us out on the weekend, all those things. But what we're trying to do is introduce planned low and moderate intensity fire under favorable conditions. So I say we're trying to have a fire in this area in April or May, not June or pre-monsoon July. That's exactly what it is. Or October is also October, November. Spring is a little bit better, one, because the wind helps carry through. I know folks find that scary, but also blows the smoke out quicker. In the fall, when we have less strong winds in October, the smoke's going to settle, and that's what happened with those snowball road piles. The smoke settled down here into Fort Valley and Baderville for longer than we anticipated, but even going back, I would have done it again if given the opportunity because we really needed to do that work. So trying to reduce the fuels, basically have fire during less intense conditions rather than more intense conditions. This is the Wild Bill prescribed fire on the west side of 180. 2 years ago, a year ago, fall. This was the Snowball parking lot up there, and so kind of all the Upper Rio work we're doing is here in front. A little bit just quickly about burn plans. We have burn plans. We have complex plans that say when we can do this, when are the right conditions. Kind of like when I'll talk about fire restrictions, we have indices that say it's too hot and dry, stop, prohibit fires out on the forest. We have plans that indicate when we should be doing this work, considers temperature, humidity, wind, moisture of the vegetation, and conditions for smoke dispersal. This was out north of the peaks, well north of the peaks, as you can see looking up Abino Bearjaw, also in the spring of 2023. And you may look like, why are you just burning grass and brush? Well, because the grass and brush here burns also every 7 to 10 years, right? And then we did eventually work our way into the trees. But that's basically just trying to recreate natural conditions as much as possible. This map is a photo of our prescribed fire from the last 3 years and the next 3 years in this area. So the black hash marks is work that we have done in the last 3 years, and then green and purple and blue are the next couple of years. And why I want to show you this is, this is the Upper Rio drainage. This is all the cutting that we're doing right now or in the next year. And then this is the cutting we're going to be doing 2 or 3 years from now. So what we did there was we weren't going to be getting to do the fuels reduction yet via commercial or mechanical treatment. So that's when we went in there and did prescribed fire in advance. And so kind of prescribed fire, take the punch out of a natural fire. Did that, really good results there. Last couple of years, we just finished up with some of this stuff here and turned it over to our timber folks who are prepping a timber sale that'll be offered there in 2027. So did a lot of that work and then also working up further north. So either thinning the trees or reducing the fuels via prescribed fire with a focus on this Upper Rio watershed. Also over here, another priority area is working over here in Timberline, where in October, I don't even know, a month ago, I think it was late April, burning really adjacent to homes that had been destroyed in the tunnel fire and rebuilt, which is something that needed to be done. And even the folks there's some really gracious people over there, at least when they're talking to me, who lost their homes in the tunnel fire and recognize that we need to be doing this work, as scary as it is for everybody involved. I do want to point out, this is This is Friedland Prairie Block. This is the pipeline. It's not Friedland Prairie Road. That's up here. We are looking to get in there this fall, Friedland Prairie. So that'll be a pretty high-profile event if we get the right conditions, which is anybody's guess. And then just showing you south of the area, all the work that's been done. Again, kind of looking all the fires going up towards Flagstaff. Fire restrictions. Last thing I want to talk about, the knucklehead stuff and the people management piece. I'll start by saying this map here, we have essentially year-round stage 2 fire restrictions that surround the city of Flagstaff and most adjacent communities part of Fort Valley. And so year-round, Christmas Day, 2 feet of snow on the ground, you can't have a campfire, you can't camp in any of these areas. 2 reasons. One, to keep people from setting up like large elaborate camps on the other side of someone's fence line. There's that element. But also, some people just can't help themselves. If they're going to camp, they have to have a fire. Like even when we go into fire restrictions, which is coming very soon, like they just can't help themselves. So we find it's easier in the more sensitive areas. Just don't let them camp there at all. Because then no camping, they're not going to have a fire, they'll go somewhere else. So this is year-round, all the time, always in existence, and then we have additional fire restrictions on top of that. So we have stage 1, 2, and 3. We're going to be going to stage 1 fire restrictions on Friday. That prohibits dispersed campfires out anywhere on the National Forest. And Stage 1, Stage 2, and Stage 3, which is kind of an area of forest closure. This is a lot to look at, but basically this is our fire restrictions history for the last 24 years, going back to 2000. And so if you see a green line, that is when we were in Stage 1 restrictions. Yellow is Stage 2, and then sometimes we go back into Stage 1. And then red is Stage 3, which is either an area or a full forest closure. And the exact dates and all don't really matter, but I share this to show you that there's really no predictability involved in our fire restrictions or in our winters. My first year, I moved here in January of 2019. There was no snow on the ground. Then we got like that 3-foot snowfall in March, and then it rained through May, and we never went into fire restrictions at all that season. But these dots are significant fire starts. That's the museum fire, which started, we weren't even in fire restrictions, but it was windy that day. And a fire got started and it took off, and it was 1,900 acres and really a lot of work there. And unfortunately, after Schultz, there was that, and then it was kind of training for tunnel and pipeline. But again, the tunnel fire over here, we were nowhere near any kind of indices for fire restrictions. But what that reflects is most of our fires are wind-driven events. And so that's where, what can we do to reduce the potential for folks to have human-caused starts on windy days?
Sorry, Matt?
Yes?
Can you go through what stage 1 is again?
Sure. So stage 1 fire restrictions are no campfires out, dispersed campfires out on the National Forest. You can still have a campfire if you're in a campground or a picnic area. So if you have
Off the 222 there.
no campfires, I can't promise you that they're not going to be there on Friday,
I'm
but
mountain bike there, and I have arguments with people. I'm like, you're not allowed to fire. He's like, of course we're allowed to fire. There's no fire signs and stuff.
they are until Thursday. They're allowed to have a fire there. Starting Friday, they won't. And actually, if I can go back a little bit, so that 222 road that you're referring to is right over here. And so a couple years ago, we closed the 164B road to camping because people were just living there. Y'all drive by there all the time. You know it, right? People were living there. We have a 14-day stay limit on the National Forest. For legal reasons, it's very difficult for us to prove that. We have to literally prove someone was there day 1, day 2, day 8. They go to court, they say, I left on day 6, and then I came back. And it's dumb, but that's a defense, and so we lose. So we just said, okay, no camping there at all. We knew people were going to move across the road to the 222. But what we have found, and this probably is not what you want to hear, we have found by having people in that smaller area along the 222 and the 171 roads, it is much easier for us to patrol and keep an eye on folks. So basically, during times of higher fire danger, we just have one of those, it's a Type 6 fire engine, it's like a pickup truck fire engine, just does a loop there all day long, all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and even beyond. And actually, we have visiting folks. There are no fires in Montana yet, so we have a fire engine from the Lassen National Forest. They're down here visiting, and they'll be just patrolling that and just looking for folks with fires. So when folks
fires under the trees. And we would like to know, I mean, if you have somebody
Yeah.
out there patrolling, that's awesome. I've never seen them. But is there a phone number or somewhere? Because I take pictures. When I see somebody camping and I know they're living there, I take pictures on a daily basis.
There is. I don't have it memorized, but you can call our dispatch center. I have the number on my phone afterwards if you want to grab.
Do you know the dispatch center's number?
No, that's the one. I don't have it memorized. It's just in my phone. I just press. Yeah, we have it. We can get it for you. And it works. Like if you call it in, I can't guarantee you we're going to be able to chase the people out immediately. And if we chase them off the 222, they're going to go to the 171. If we chase them off there, they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to go show up. That people live in the rocks above my office over by the mall. Like it's a societal problem that we're not going to be able to end, but that we can work on. So this, getting at the fires, and this is the history of human-caused fires around the peaks. And so I don't have it over on the 222 road, but this is human-caused fires over the last 9 years. And as like you can see, this is the 164B road on both sides, Freeland Prairie Road, which is also added to the no camping, no campfires, and we put trees and stuff where people would camp so that they can't physically park there anymore, and that's working. And then, like I mentioned, these are the rocks at the base of Mount Eldon above my office. People live there. And like fewer fires there than they had. But these are human fires that like got out or either illegal or got out and moved around a little bit. And the reason I share this with you is the vast majority of our human-caused fires are started within sight of a road. It is people with a car or a truck camping along the road. We have very little history of people on foot or bikes starting fires. 6 years ago, we had some questionable ones that maybe with somebody on a bike, we're not sure. It happens, but generally we find most of our fires start along a road, or occasionally people hoof it all the way up like Fremont Saddle up in the peaks, and they have a fire up there that gets out. So it's not exclusively on roads. But the reason I'm sharing that is we looked after the tunnel fire and pipeline fire, folks were saying we very clearly have to do something different, right? What we're doing is not working to reduce the threat of human-caused fires. Tunnel fire and pipeline fire both started by humans in areas that were year-round close to fires. They were in that blob surrounding the city where fires are prohibited. And calling them knuckleheads doesn't do justice to what they did to the community, right? But having that area, it's a good thing, but people are still going to get in there and start fires. So what we decided to do, we started in 2023, we came up with a pilot project, basically, to restrict motor vehicle access to the roads around the peaks during times of high fire danger. And that high fire danger is what we're calling stage 2 fire restrictions. So not stage 1, stage 2. If it doesn't rain, it's like 50% chance of it raining on Sunday. Like, that would be awesome. If it doesn't rain on Sunday, maybe in 2 or 3 weeks, we might wind up in stage 2 fire restrictions. And so what you'll see, it'll basically be like the winter in reverse. During the winter, we get snow, and all the roads get closed. We're going to do that during stage 2 fire restrictions to keep people from getting into those areas with their vehicles, which should prohibit or eliminate 80 or 90% of the human-caused fires. Won't eliminate all of them, but any ones that we can reduce is a benefit. So this is something we started in 2023, not 2003, if only. That is a typo that I recognized immediately once I clicked the slide. But here's the San Francisco peaks. So all the red lines are roads that will be restricted to motor vehicles restricted. You'll still be able to hike, bike, ride your horse, walk along it, whatever you want. Snowball Road will remain open. The most popular summer trailheads, Humphreys and Kachina are up there. Snowball also has a business up there. And we don't really have a fire history from Snowball Road. And then you see plenty of what we think we struck the right balance of reducing the risk of human-caused fires while still providing as much access as possible for people to enjoy their national forests and their public lands, which is the reason a lot of people live here in town. So you see all the trailhead signs, places you could park and get up in there, including Snowball Road. You can get up to Aspen Corner. If folks want to get up to 9,000 feet, you could still do that. And so we didn't have to do it in 2023. That was one of those years we were ready to do it, but we did not go into stage 2 fire restrictions, which I think reflects the balance we're trying to strike. Conditions didn't get particularly bad, so we didn't have to do this. Last year, we went into stage 2 restrictions for 1 week. I think it was right around the same time of year. It was like early June. And like the forecast said, there's a good chance it's going to rain next weekend. We said, well, it's hot and dry now. Went into stage 2 restrictions, and then it was like the first of those weird pre-monsoon storms that we had last year. And then we came out of stage 2 restrictions after a week. So we've had this in place for 2 years, but only actually done it for a week. And going back to that slide that reflected the length of restrictions, usually stage 2, when we do it, we go into stage 2 for about 4 to 5 weeks. It's generally early to mid-June, and as you might imagine, it ends with a monsoon, which the average is June 10th for us, so it takes us like 2 days to open all the gates. So usually around June 12th, we come out of those stage 2 restrictions. So we'll be looking at that this year. 7% of the roads on the district will be closed, so relatively minimal impact. Acknowledge that like the best roads on the Flagstaff Ranger District are the ones that are going to be closed, the 151 and stuff like that, getting up into Hart Prairie. But folks, if they still want to go to Hart Prairie, you can still drive up Snowball Road and just walk off the side, and there you are in Hart Prairie. Similarly, people who probably live out that way, just like in the winter, when the gates lock for snow, you open the gate and you go by it and you close the gate behind you, we'll be asking you to do the same thing this time around. So that is everything I wanted to share. Once again, we have all of this information will be at the table, and we'll be here all night for folks who want to chat more or ask questions or get a little bit more information.
Those huge slash piles down by A1 that have been there for years, what are your plans? Thank you.
That contract just ended. They just finished. And so we can't actually get in there until the contract, the work is done. They're done. We'll be looking at getting in there. I can't guarantee this winter, but we were working over kind of further. I'm looking like the map is still up there. We were burning that's okay. We were burning big piles further to the west earlier this year. We'll be looking at getting get those piles hopefully this winter. But again, that gets into, we need enough snow really to get in there. Yes. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Our plan is to get in there. I know I don't like it really any more than you do, but it's the most economical way to do it. Like if we paid someone to haul that pile out, it would cost several $1,000s. It literally costs like $40 to send somebody out there with like it does. Like send somebody out with a torch and burn it, and then we just have to go monitor it for quite some time. And then actually, I will say, and with Tim, we've been using a lot more in the last couple of years, infrared drone technology. So when we burn those piles, like the heat lingers for quite some time. And you saw this is what happened over in New Mexico with the big fires 3 years ago. Hermit's Peak and Calf Canyon was a pile, and they lit in December, and it just smoldered and it blew out. So we have that technology, and so does County Emergency Management. And so if we need Tim, we call Tim and say, hey, can you come fly this? And we can see, like, is there any heat? And if there is, we can go nail it. And if there's no heat, then I sleep better that night. And so both the Forest Service and the county have that. And so that's one thing that we've been doing with the piles lately. Sir?
One more question. Keep moving.
Yeah.
Again, they're going to be here. So
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay. I don't understand why you don't just simplify all this and just draw a radius 10 miles around the peaks and just prohibit fires, period, under all conditions. Why don't we just say no fires anywhere near the peaks?
Trying to strike the balance of people enjoying their public land, and it is an important activity to a lot of people. And
But I'm not talking about keeping them, I'm not talking about keeping them off the land, just no fires.
a lot of people, like I haven't had a campfire in I can't tell you how many years. A lot of people find it to be a really important part
Right,
of
but
their
there are plenty of other
experience.
places, there are plenty of other places
there
to go where they can have a fire.
We could, but then at what point does that 10-mile line becomes 20 feet or 20 miles, and then we just
no,
keep
I
pushing?
mean 10 miles, it would be based on fire hazard, not, drawing a 10-mile circle, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're focusing on the real priority areas. Then there are other areas where it's less risky, where we've done treatment, we've done the prescribed fire. So could we do that? Yes, we could. Have we felt we needed to go that far? We think the stage 2 restrictions prohibiting any motor vehicles and campfires from being out there during higher fire danger is really an important step for us to take.
Okay, let's move on. So we don't want to have.
All right, so I don't want to be here at midnight. I wanted to go over, I'm Jay Smith, I'm the Forest Restoration Director for Coconino County Flood Control District, and I wanted to go over the projects that we are investing in as a district. So Matt has mentioned all of these projects. I just wanted to bring some of them, all but one. So the Hawk, he wouldn't throw TNC under, but I'm going to. So Joel and Nicole are both back here from TNC. They will be manning a table here if you have questions for them. The Nature Conservancy's really doing a lot of great work with the Forest Service. We have partnered with them basically to let them manage the Hawk project while we help pay for it. So we've put $2 million into that. I'll go into the dollars here. So the way that was set up was actually fairly innovative for us. We went out and knew that one contractor to do 2,045 acres could take 2 years. We wanted to get it done in 1 year. So we went and split it up, or Joel and his team split it up into 5 different management areas and broke that up to where people, and required people to say, you can get this done within a year. And so we're going to use 3 contractors on that project to do that, so we can speed that up and get these high priorities done quicker. The Durford project, which was the furthest north, we're working with the National Forest Foundation on that project. We have put some money in with that, and they have put the bids out. Again, they expect operations to begin this summer on that. We're starting on the furthest south, that's closest to the peaks, and working that project to the north so that we're getting that highest priority area done. The LaRue Steep Slope, that's the area Matt was talking about with this new kind of equipment that's in our area right now. So if you walk out the door when it's daylight and you look up to your left, that's what we're talking about, that hillside. That's a big part of the LaRue area. We're planning to put bids out with the Forest Service in early 2026. So we're working on it right now. He also mentioned the Fort Valley Experimental Forest. We're doing a tour of that tomorrow to work on looking at how we can get some work done in that. If you look at a satellite image and you see all the thinning projects that have happened, there's a dark green spot right in the middle, right across the street here and other spots. That's the Fort Valley Experimental Forest that is just thick with timber, trees that we want to see thinned out. We still are looking at some potential helicopter. It's only a couple hundred acres, but we're looking to see how critical will that be and what do we need to do there. So that's under evaluation. The last thing that we've been part of is the Lowell Observatory, the Section 17. So if you go up to Lowell Observatory, they own 640 acres right there. We're working with Greater Flagstaff Forest Partnership and the City of Flagstaff and Lowell Observatory. We have some congressionally directed spending funding that came from Senators Kelly and Sinema, and we are working to get that project underway this year as well. How much are we talking about? Well, this year we're going to put about a little over $3 million into these projects. Next year, another $2.4 million, and then our board has put that as a priority, and we're going to continue to budget funding for these projects to see them through. We want to get this work done to protect our communities and protect the San Francisco peaks. So we're doing a lot of work with a lot of dollars. Out of all those projects that you saw Matt show, only one of those has good enough timber to pay for itself to come out of the woods, and that's Wing West. And R4, the new sawmill, is the one that purchased that, so they paid the government to go take those trees because it had good enough timber. All the rest of them, we have to pay. Why are we paying? Do you see all this dead and down wood that's on the forest floor? We got to pay. That has no value. It costs money to get it off the forest, but if we don't, and that catches on fire, that's when you have those high severity, burn soil severity that causes the flooding. We're going to make sure we get a lot of that wood off of the forest floor so that because we could go in and thin and still have a fire that would cause flooding. So we have to get this off the forest floor, and that's one of the priorities that we're doing with our funding with the Flood Control District.
Can you do any work in the wilderness area?
No, currently we cannot do work in wilderness areas. There are areas for us that are working on different things. You can get some exclusions, but we've got enough work right now to do outside of the wilderness area. We'll fight that battle soon enough, I'm sure, because there's a lot of dead and down up there as well. Yes, it's really bad.
Trees don't even hit the ground.
That's right. Thank you. And Joe,
Joe, where are you? Joe Hines.
Joe's back
Where's
there.
Joe?
He and I will be manning these two right over here if you want to talk forest restoration, but Joe's added, we've doubled our size in the forest restoration department. Yes.
Great. Thanks, Jay. You know, it's very unusual. Chair Horstman, you know, she serves with a number of other supervisors and what they call county commissioners in a lot of other states across the western U.S. and on various task forces and organizations in our National County Association. There's very, very few. I mean, you can count on one hand at most the number of counties that are actually investing in forest restoration. So we're very proud of that. We think that this is going to change the long-term trajectory. It is changing. And I really want to commend her because I will say that there were a lot of discussions for a lot of years, for quite a few years here, and now the leadership here, we have Matt, and now Erin Mayville at the forest here, who is the forest supervisor, and she kept the pressure on, and we have this partnership because we have good leadership at the Forest Service, and we have good leadership here now to really keep that pressure on, and we're getting this work done, and it's really crucial. So, all right, so we're going to take a turn here, and we're going to move through this pretty quickly. Some of you had raised your hands that you were here back in 2015, 2016. We had a little gap then when we completed all of the flood mitigation that took place after the Schultz fire out north of Flagstaff, and we're in the same situation now. We're starting this next year. We'll be concluding the flood mitigation, post-wildfire flood mitigation projects in that area, and now we have some resources again, some financial resources again, to begin to look at our special flood hazard areas. And one of the special flood hazard areas within the county is here in Fort Valley. And so we're really focusing on those areas, frankly, because those people that live in those areas, if you have a mortgage, you're required to have flood insurance. And that's a significant cost to you and to the people who live in the other special flood hazard areas across the county. So it's time to begin to put a plan together. I want to emphasize that you're going to see kind of what the process, a little bit about the process. This is a long-term effort, and it will not get done if we don't have support, frankly, at the federal level. And right now, if you're aware, there's a movement by this administration to eliminate FEMA. They've already eliminated one of the key grant programs that we would have been applying for to construct these, to engineer and construct these projects. So right now, the prognosis doesn't look good. At the same time, we have the opportunity, we do have some resources for us to begin to put this planning together and start down a path of at least getting some engineering done. But we don't know if this is going to take 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It's really going to depend on what are other resources, because the district doesn't raise enough money to pay for the level of threat that we have throughout all of our flood areas. We couldn't accomplish that work solely with our own revenue. We could, over a long, long period of time, right? So, but if you don't plan, you'll never get there, right? So we've got to start down this path. Back to 2015, 2017, we did what we called this initial engineering assessments. Chris Duza brought up some of the mapping that was done by J.E. Fuller at that time, flood mapping. You can take a look at that afterward. At that time, these were the key criteria that we used. And these were on the right-hand side were the special flood hazard areas that were included in that analysis. This was kind of a snapshot in a particular time frame of looking at some of the higher priority projects that came out of that analysis at that time. And you will see that, if you look at the far right column, the higher the score, the higher the priority. And you will see that Munns Park was the highest priority at that time. Unfortunately, the project that we'd identified there, when they did some additional analysis, they determined that if we implemented that, it would actually create adverse impacts downstream through Oak Creek Canyon and into Sedona. So obviously that came off the table. We did complete the project in Mountain Dell. Chris Duza was the engineer for that project, but that's the only project that got done because we had the museum fire that we spent about 15 million on mitigating, and then now the tunnel, pipeline fire. And so we haven't had an opportunity. All the money that's been coming into the district has been going to support those efforts. So Mountain Dell ended up being the top priority, and we moved forward with that project at that time. Now, moving fast forward to today, again, we're kind of hopefully going to move beyond this. This is one of the reasons it's so important we're doing the restoration work out in this area. And, but very importantly, we're expanding this process to areas that were not included last time. I won't go into the details about why, but they were not included last time, included Sedona and Tucson. And both of them have very large watersheds that impact their areas and have a lot of economic impact if there's flooding in those areas. Obviously, if you think about there's, the Grand Canyon, Tucson's the access to the Grand Canyon, about a $2 billion impact, financial, economic impact to the state of Arizona. And more beyond that if you think about all the buses that come in from Las Vegas. So, and Sedona's even frankly greater than that in terms of the impact. So we're taking a more sophisticated process this time to look at these areas. We've expanded our criteria, or we're proposing to expand it. We're just starting this process, and major consideration this time will be how do we secure that funding. We know that there is a grant program that does remain. It's called the Flood Mitigation Assistance Program, but there's going to be a strong emphasis on a very strong what's called benefit cost analysis. You're going to have to demonstrate that the benefit far, far outweighs the cost. And so back to that economic impact is going to play into this much more significantly going forward. These are the criteria. All these materials will be on the web, and this is in your packet as well. The blue squares that are in the inner center are more of what we call kind of the prioritization considerations. Mitigation event means what level could you mitigate to, number of home structures possible. Most of the rest of this is pretty obvious what it means, opportunities to work with other projects. But really the purple boxes or magenta, whatever color you want to call that, on the outside are really have a tremendous amount of influence relative to actual feasibility of those projects. So those funding partnerships in some communities we can work with sanitary district or other entities, communities that have the ability to raise funds and or seek grants. That in that economic benefit, economic impact and cost benefit. This gives you a glance at, and again, this is in your packet, a glance at, what are the sizes of these watersheds, the volume of water that's coming through those watersheds, and the number of properties and structures that are impacted and so forth. And so these will be part of the data points that to some extent will play into the prioritization process. So we move through that fairly quickly. Again, Chris will be over here with the maps if people have any questions about that. And as we move through this process, we'll be back out to share information. I'll say last time, this community in 2015, 2016 contributed a tremendous amount of information. I mean, we got great photos, we got stories, we got tremendous amount of information that really helps. So the good thing is we do have a lot of history for this area relative to the flood events, and most of those were rain on snow. That's been the really large events here. So, but certainly if there's other information that you believe we should share, we will have an email set up through this process so that you can email us if you want to share other information with us. So one thing I want to share is we have another very important wildfire-related process that we're beginning with the board. I know that some of you in this area, and certainly throughout many of the other communities in the county, forested communities primarily, Kachina, Mountain Air, Munspark, et cetera, that there are becoming more and more challenging in terms of securing insurance, maintaining your insurance, or the cost of insurance. And so we're launching a multi-work session, set of work sessions with the board this coming Tuesday, June 3rd, and she'll have all the information out. We'll get it all out to you. We're starting with foundational information about, this is a very, very complex issue. Let me tell you, the whole insurance industry and reinsurance industry, it's not a simplistic concept, set of concepts. And we're bringing in from the Headwaters Economics Institute out of Montana. They're a real major expert in this arena. They're going to come in and do about an hour-and-a-half session with the board on Tuesday. It's from 1:15 to 2:45. You can participate either, you can stream it on YouTube, or you can certainly come to the board meeting. But I really encourage you to keep an eye out for those. And then we will take individual elements of this issue and dig deeper into those. So we'll have someone from the insurance industry come. We'll have some other people who are involved in projects in other communities. Colorado's doing some proactive efforts, for example. Flagstaff starting an effort. So to share more information about this issue and a lot of discussion about home hardening, costs related to that, all of that plays into this issue. So we'll be taking kind of each one of those and doing a deeper dive as we move through this over the next probably 4 to 6 months. So I encourage you, if you have concerned about that, and a lot of people are, to participate in those or look at the videos. They'll all be online afterward as well. So thank you so much for coming. We really, really appreciate your time and energy. And again, feel free to discuss with anyone out here. Joe will have the maps up relative to the mitigation, short-term mitigation, if you want to look at that for flooding. And so thank you very much. Look forward to continuing.